Hi everyone, my name is Jonathan, and by the end of this video, you'll be building powerful Make.com automations without pulling your hair out. I'm calling this Make Foundations because I'm going to walk you through everything you need to build smart automations that save time, reduce busy work, and just make your life easier in general. We'll start with the basics and talk about data structures, how to set up your connections in Make, the different types of modules you'll be working with, and how to control the flow of data between those modules using filters and routers. Then we'll move into some more advanced topics like working with APIs, iterators, aggregators, and error handling. Next, I'll introduce you to AI and show you how to integrate ChatGPT right into your workflows. And last but not least, we'll put all the pieces together and build your very first automation together. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Hey there, I forgot to mention, I put together a free guide that goes along with this entire video. This guide is going to include all the presentations that you see in the videos. It's going to include 5 plug-and-play blueprints that you can download and install today at Make.com. I'm also going to include a Make module decoder, where I'll break down some of the most essential modules that you need to learn and talk about how to use them, when to use them. And finally, I'll include a Make automation checklist. If you follow this checklist every time you create a new scenario, you won't miss any important steps. Okay, more on how to gain access to this free guide at the end of the video. Hey there, welcome to this first video in the series on Make.com. Make.com is the automation platform that I started with, and now I thought it'd be good to make this video to introduce you to it in case you're brand new to the platform, and just walk you through some of the basics and get you started right away using the platform today. So here we are on the screen. The title of this presentation is Mastering Workflow Automation with Make.com. Discover how Make.com's powerful no-code platform can transform your business processes, eliminate repetitive tasks, and connect your digital tools seamlessly. So what is Make.com? Well, essentially, it is a no-code platform that allows you to build powerful automations without writing a single line of code. Now, why is this so powerful? So I actually have a computer science degree, and for over a decade, I built web applications with all sorts of code. And so when I came across Make.com, it was kind of cool because I was like, wow, I can actually build amazing applications in half the time by using no-code solutions as you're trying to run and manage my own server and writing code and debugging code. Like, this is a really powerful tool that really levels the playing field for anyone to build applications, whether you have a computer science degree or not. So this interface is very user-friendly because it has a drag and drop interface, and it's kind of like connecting puzzle pieces together. And in addition, Make.com comes with over like 1,000 templates that are already pre-made, pre-built. So you don't actually have to start from scratch. You can choose from their pre-built templates and then click start, and it'll automatically have that template built for you ahead of time. All you have to do then is just update the credentials and change your inputs, and you're ready to go. So that is essentially what Make.com is. And again, we'll get into it later, but I'll show you some examples. So why do we want to use Make.com? Why even use this platform to automate our workflows? Well, number one, human-centered work. So one of the benefits of automation is it will allow you and free you up to focus on more human-centered work. You can focus on more creative and strategic tasks as opposed to the boring, monotonous tasks that you have to do every single day. And when I try to pitch automation to people, I ask them like 2 big questions. Number one is think about one of your most boring, repetitive tasks that you do every single day. That's a good candidate for automation. And number 2, if you could hire someone right now to do this thing, whatever this thing is, if you could hire someone to do that because you hate doing it, what would that one thing be? And that may also be a good candidate for automation. So if you can pass off those tasks that you hate doing, that are boring, monotonous, repetitive, to an automation workflow, it will give you more time to do the things that you love doing. And more times than not, that's going to be more time focused on human-to-human interactions. Number two, automation can enhance your productivity. Essentially, it's almost like hiring an employee. You're going to be able to do more with fewer resources because you're going to use automation to do things behind the scenes or work 24/7, even while you sleep. Another great feature of automation is it's a connector. So think about all the different applications and tools that you use on a given day. You've got Gmail, you've got Google Sheets, you've got Asana, Slack, your CRM, whatever it is. You've got all these different tools that you use, and they're all siloed, they're all distinct, they're all built by different software companies. But the power of automation, especially with Make.com, is you can connect those applications together and allow them to talk back and forth and pass data back and forth. So that's really powerful. So now you're essentially gathering all your tools together and making them work seamlessly together. And lastly, automation is a huge time saver. It's going to help you eliminate repetitive manual tasks. And I mean, think about it. If you could come up with an automation that would save you 10 hours a week, right? That's for a month, that's 40 hours. Think about that. That's a whole week back. That's a whole week back in your schedule that you're not doing something. You're getting that whole week back. So that's pretty powerful. Let's move on. So how do you get started with Make.com? Well, the cool thing about this platform is it actually has a free plan. So you can start building automations today. Other platforms may have free trials, but then you got to pay after the first 7 days. But Make.com has a completely free plan. Now, it's pretty sufficient. For me, there came a point where the free plan was no longer working. I had too many operations and I had to upgrade. But if you're just starting out, it's a great place to start with a free plan. And again, you don't have to start from scratch. You can choose from a list of over 1,000 templates to choose from to get you started. And then we're going to go through an example later, but essentially when you open up Make.com, they have a canvas, and that's called your scenario. And your scenario has modules, and you connect the modules and you test it and then you run it and you're good to go. And I'll show you an example of that later. So again, Make.com already has over 1,000 popular business applications, already have modules pre-built for you. You don't have to search or build your own. So for example, we have Gmail, Microsoft 365, Slack, Salesforce, Shopify, Asana, you name it, they've already got it built. There's only been a few times since I started using Make.com where they didn't have a specific software module already pre-built, but they have a solution for that where you can actually use what's called an HTTP module, and you can connect to that software application's API. So even if your software is not listed in their list of templates or modules, you can still connect to that application. So what are some real-world examples of using automation? One might be email management, where you can auto-categorize your incoming messages and then send personalized responses based on the content. And you can even flag priority items for your attention. This would be some sort of an email filter that would use AI to potentially read the email, analyze it, say, is this a sales pitch email? Is this a support ticket? Is this a customer support issue? Is someone asking about shipping or the status of their order? And you can use AI to filter all that and then automate the response, or you can automate the labeling of the email, and move it to the right folder in your inbox. Another example of automation is lead nurturing. So think about leads coming in from a contact form. Automation can automatically take the lead data from your inbox, scrape it, and then dump it into Google Sheets or your CRM or database, eliminating the manual task or process of copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. I actually have a client that I built that for them. They were spending hours and hours a day copying and pasting from an email to a Google Sheet. And I automated all that with Make.com. Number 3, content creation is also a good use of automation. Not only to use AI to write the content, but also to do research, rewriting, generating images, generating copy, and then publishing, auto-publishing to your social media platforms. Number 4, customer support. When support tickets come in, you can use AI to analyze the ticket and then use automation to send it to the right team. Maybe it sends a message on Slack, maybe it sends an email, maybe it sends a text, but all that can be done inside of Make.com. Okay, let's talk about some key terminology that you're going to need when you start working with Make.com. So the first one is a scenario. A scenario is, well, think of it like a canvas. On your screen, you have a big white canvas to work from. That is a scenario. And you create multiple scenarios within Make.com. Now, within a scenario, you have modules. And the modules, if you've seen screenshots of Make.com already, modules are the big colorful bubbles that represent a tool or a software. And inside of that scenario, you're going to connect those modules together. Now, once you connect a module, then you have to set it up properly for it to work. And that's when the connection window comes into play. Connection window will allow you to authorize credentials. It will allow you to manage the inputs and manage any kind of advanced settings that you need to make that module work properly. Then we have webhooks. Webhooks are called from other tools or other tools outside of Make.com, like Airtable. Or you can actually call webhooks from other scenarios from within Make.com. And then you have triggers. Triggers are what we use to actually start a scenario. So as soon as that trigger is scheduled or it's set to do something on demand, that trigger will start the automation automatically. And I will say webhooks are also another way that you can start a scenario as well. And lastly, you want to be knowledgeable about operations. So one run of one module will cost you one operation. And why that is important is because Make.com works, its pricing strategy or pricing model is based off of operations. And we'll see that in a minute when we go over pricing. Okay, so actually let's go check out the pricing model now. So here we are in Make.com and we see their pricing options. And again, here is on the left, we have their free option up to 1,000 operations per month. It's totally free. You get the no-code visual workflow builder. You get access to over, well, now it's 2,000 apps. And I mean, this is perfect for you if you're just getting started off. Eventually, if you get into this pretty heavily, you're going to run out of operations pretty quickly if you're using it for yourself or for clients. And you'll need to upgrade to the next plan up, which again is only like $10 a month. But you get 9,000 more operations per month. So that's pretty good. There's also some other features here that you can see. And it just basically, like any other software application, the more tools and features that you want, the more it's going to cost you. But for now, go ahead and sign up for the free plan for now. Okay, so let's hop over to Make.com. So after you log in, this is what you're going to see. And I know this might look like a lot, so we'll walk through it together. You don't necessarily need to know everything on here right away, but you have your organization, And right beneath that, it tells you what plan you're on. Like I'm on the core plan, as I mentioned earlier. I'm on this core plan. And so I get up to 20,000 operations per month. I have 17,000 unused, and I'm billed monthly. So that's a nice piece of information to have, because if you're approaching your limit on operations, you might want to upgrade, because maybe you have this you have a scenario running for a client or for yourself, and if you run out of operations, then the scenario will be stopped automatically by Make.com. And likewise, you can see the same information is basically here with this graph. The operations is labeled in purple, and your data transfer is labeled in orange. With the free plan, it doesn't tell me. Oh, here we go. So with the core plan, I can transfer up to 10 gigabytes of data per month. And I've only used about 7 megabytes so far, so I'm pretty good. Okay, what else? Yeah, you can buy extra operations here if you're getting low. You have teams. You can create a team. You can create users and then invite those users to your team. And then down the bottom, you can see all your active scenarios that are currently running. On the left-hand side, let's click over to scenarios. This is the majority of where you're going to be working at in the scenarios section. On the left-hand side, you'll see all the folders that I have created already, and each folder has multiple scenarios inside of it. For example, when I was going through the Make Academy, I created a folder, and then each one of these is remember we talked about the terminology. So each one of these is a scenario. So let's click on this scenario. Okay, so this is essentially your canvas, which you talked about earlier. And these are the modules. Big, bright, colorful bubble modules. I think it's what makes Make.com so unique is the interface. It's user-friendly, it's bright, it's got big, bold colors, and so that's one thing that makes it attractive. Let's talk about this canvas a little bit. So in the top left-hand corner, you can rename this to whatever you want so that you can keep track of it. For example, this one is telling me what tools are being used in the scenario, which is a good strategy for naming your scenarios. So Google Sheets, tools, text parser. That's one way to name it. Again, you have your modules on the screen. Down here, you can click this button, run once, and it will run that scenario. Here, you can choose how often this scenario runs. So you can say, I want this to run once at a specific date and time. You can tell it to run every day at a certain time. You can choose certain days of the week, certain days of the month, or on demand. So there's all sorts of options of how you want to schedule this thing to run. Every now and then you want to make sure you're saving your scenario in case something happens. You can choose inputs. This is pretty cool. Like for example, I use this sometimes when I want the user before they run the scenario to insert some data. So you can actually, it's an input variable basically from the user. And you can tell it, like, let's use an example, like, let's say we're running a scenario that gets the weather using an API. And I want the user to tell me what city in the United States, what city and state do they want to get the weather from? Well, you could create a variable called location. And then as soon as that person runs that scenario, a little pop-up window will come up and say, okay, enter your location. You put in Charlotte, North Carolina, and that variable is then used and passed to the module to get the weather for that location. So that's basically how you use inputs. There's also scenario settings here with this gear icon. You can add notes if you want to make a small note about what a certain module does. You can click on this button to go to previous versions of your scenario. you can auto align. Let me show you auto align. It's kind of cool. Let's say you're working in, you got this crazy scenario, but now it's all out of whack. You click this button and it will auto align everything together for you. If you ever want to explain the flow or see how it works, you see this little animation is running and it tells you how it works. I know that's a basic example, but if you had a very large or long scenario with lots of modules, it can get kind of crazy. And so that would be a helpful option to help you see like the flow of information from one module to another. If you ever want to export this blueprint and maybe share it with someone else, you can do that here. Or if you want to import a blueprint from someone else that's created the scenario for you, you can use that option. Here, there's some quick buttons, quick access buttons to certain features like flow control, tools, text parser, Google Sheets, and Gmail. And these are, notice, these are all the ones that are basically being used in this scenario. You can use this button to add a new module. For example, we want an HTTP module, want to get a file, and then we want to maybe add this at the end. And you see what just happened there. When I got the module close to the last one, watch what happens. It like automatically connects it for me. See that little handshake there? So it's automatically creating that for me. And then again, auto align. So, and when we're talking about our terminology, we talked about connection window. So all you need to do there is just click on the button or click on the module and choose an account. And then now you have your window that comes up and it will allow you to modify these fields accordingly, which will all be different for every single module. Like in this module, since it's a Google Sheets, we're trying to connect to a Google Sheet on my Google Drive account. But if you go over to HTTP, it's just asking for a URL. And if you go to Gmail, it's asking for an email address, a subject, email body. So it's going to be different for every single module. Let's see, is there any other, oh yeah, let's look at, we talked about scenarios, we talked about modules, we talked about connections. Let's look at a webhook real quick. So let's show you what a webhook looks like. So I do a search for webhook and this comes up. And now I can choose which one of these I want. And I'm looking for custom webhook. And so this could be another way that you could start the scenario. You click on it and then you can add a new webhook or choose from existing one. But notice when you choose a webhook, you get this URL. And this URL is an address that is specific to this module in this scenario. And so you can have another application like Airtable make a call to that webhook and it will activate that scenario for you. So that's one way you can use webhooks to activate a scenario. And then we have triggers. In this case, the trigger is Google Sheets, which is search rows. You know it's a trigger because A, it's the beginning of the it's at the beginning of the scenario and also has this little clock, which is going to be run at every 15 minutes. So every 15 minutes, this scenario, this module is going to run and activate the rest of these modules. Let's see, and operations. So whenever you actually run, let's see, let me show you an example of running something. Let's say, for example, let's try this one. So this is a real scenario that I use to get comments from my YouTube channel. If I just hit run once, you see these little bubbles right here that just popped up? That's telling me that it's consuming one operation. So that consumed an operation, that consumed three operations, three operations, three operations. So these bubbles are telling us how many times these modules are being run and how many operations are being consumed by each module. Okay, let's jump into it. So the first most easiest data type is the string. And string is just it's just basic text, right? It's a sequence of characters representing text data. So what are some common examples of strings? Names, email addresses, websites, city, state, phone numbers. Those are all just strings. And so a good example would be like goodworks.ai, which is my domain name for my consulting agency. That represents a domain name. And you'll see there on the screen, there's an example of text. Hey there, a file has been uploaded. Content, hey, file is attached. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's just string. It's not numbers. It's not binary data. It's not dates. It's just basic text. Okay, let's move on. Okay, numbers and booleans. So numbers, obviously, we should know what those are by now, but they're used in calculations and comparisons. For example, the number 1, 2, 3, 4. Numbers can be used to represent quantities, dates, age, for example, and they're used in mathematical operations. This will come in handy when you're doing filtering, and sometimes when you're testing a scenario. For example, if you're trying to pull lead data from a spreadsheet and there's hundreds of rows, if you want to do some debugging or testing, you might not want to return all hundreds of rows every single time. You might want to just limit that result to 5 or 10 just to debug so that you're not waiting so long to do your testing. So that's a good situation when you would use a number to limit the amount of rows returned from a module. And then we have booleans. Boolean represents zeros and ones, true and false. These are used for conditional logic and often displayed as checkboxes or radio buttons in your connection windows. And there's an example here on the screen for a Dropbox. If you want to watch files in a specific folder on Dropbox, you can say, do you also want to watch the subfolders within that Dropbox folder? Yes or no. This is an example of a Boolean. Okay, then we have binary data. This is a little bit more complicated, but this really comes in handy when you're trying to work with files or media, PDFs, images, videos. If you start working with anything besides string and dates and numbers, and you're working with media, this is when binary data comes into play. And you see here on the screen, there is this data comes in, this binary data. If you see all these zeros and ones on the screen, it's kind of complicated, but basically these zeros and ones are representing, like, for example, a PDF. And you're like, well, doesn't look anything like a PDF. Right, but this is the 0 and 1 representation of a PDF. So how would you actually use this? Let's say you're going to an API and you download some data and you get back this binary data. How do you use it? Okay, so here we are in make.com. Let's go look for the Google Drive module, and we want to upload a file. So where would we use this data? Well, how would we pass it? Well, if we had another module here before this that was passing this information, and it's looking for a variable called data, you could pass it right here in this little input field that says data. That's where you would pass your binary data, and that's where it would take that file and put it onto Google Drive for you. And then here in Google Drive, you can choose which folder you want to upload it to, what your file name is, and then again, this is where your binary data would be passed over to, and then you hit save. Okay, here's a really important one, arrays. Now don't get too scared about arrays. Just think of an array as like a list. So A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. We should be able to understand what a list is. But basically, an array is a complex data type that contain multiple elements of the same type, also known as a list. So what are some common uses of arrays? Well, an email list, maybe in a Google spreadsheet. Think of having a database of leads or email addresses. Maybe you have a product catalog where you have all the products that you sell. Maybe you have a database of users and they have names, email addresses, and passwords. That would be a list. So if you want to visualize it, think of it as like a spreadsheet. Think of it like Google Sheets, and you have a column full of email addresses. That's a list. So take a look here on the screen, and we have an example here of a list. And let's say this is an array called city, and within that array we have 5 cities: London, Paris, New York, Shanghai, and Toronto. This is a list of cities around the world. And also what's kind of cool within Make is they give you little hints and the connection windows, and they'll even tell you that this is an array. So arrays are just lists, and they start in they work in sequential order. And this is something interesting to remember, is that arrays start at index 0, not 1. So if you were trying to reference London, for example, in your next module, you would reference it with the index of 0, not 1. So just keep that in mind when working with arrays. Okay, let's move on. Now let's talk about JSON. JSON is a universal format used all over the world, and especially when you're working with APIs. It is a universal format that is used to communicate with different services, websites, APIs, all around the world. And as I said here, it is the standard format for API communication. And to visualize it, think of it as like a spreadsheet with multiple columns and multiple rows. Now, the structure of JSON is key value pairs. So you have a key and then a value, a key and then a value, a key and then a value. So here is an example. Notice that the JSON starts with, this is the raw data of JSON. This is what it looks like. It has a opening curly bracket and then an ending curly bracket. And then the key here is name and the value is Jonathan. The next key is email and the next value is my email. The next key is location and the value is North Carolina. And notice each key value pair is separated by a colon. You also notice that each key value pair is enclosed in quotation marks. So that's how it looks in the raw data. Okay, here we go. So in Make, it might look something like that. You could create a variable, and we have 3 items, and each item has a name or a key, and then the value. So name, Jonathan, email, my email, location, North Carolina. That's what it would look like in Make.com. So now we come to a collection. And a collection is just a list of JSONs. For example, you might have a product catalog, and each product has details about that product. So it might have the ID of the product, the title of the product, a description, the price, the quantity, the colors. Those are all details about that one particular product. In Make.com, collections are often returned by API modules and database queries. And common uses would be customer records, inventory management, and analytic data. So here's an example of a collection. So think of it as like a spreadsheet, like Google Sheets, with multiple columns and multiple rows. So here is another example. So again, here we are in the raw data. This would be one collection. So again, we have name, value pairs, name, Make 101, number of pages, 213, genre, history. This would be like a collection of books, for example. And again, we're using JSON format. And so what does that look like in Make? Well, in this example, we have an array of books, and each book is a collection. So here's a collection, and here's a collection. Remember, an array is just a list. So this is an array with a list of collections. And again, key value pairs, name, Make 101, number of pages, 213, genre, history, etc. So the cool thing again about Make is that it'll tell you what it is in the connection window. You just need to look at the little grayed out helper text here next to each value. So that is a collection. Again, that'll come in handy when we're talking more about connection windows and running bundles and getting results. We'll see this again later in other videos. So here I am. I have a scenario open with the blank canvas with the default gray bubble. And let's say we want to set up a connection to Gmail to send an email. So there's a couple things I can do here. I can click on this little guy once and this little window pops up. Gmail is right here, but if I didn't see it, I could just do a search for Gmail and then click on show more, and it will show me all the options I have for Gmail. Okay, that's option one. You can also do this. You can click on this little button here at the bottom that says add, and it's the same exact thing as if you were to click on this. So there's two ways there to add things to your canvas. Also, there's some, I think what this is down here is like your most recent modules. So I opened the Gmail module recently, so it's appearing here. So this is another quick way to find a module that you've used recently. So let's just try this. Click on Gmail and let's do send an email. Okay. So before you start working with the different services and setting up your scenario, you have to first make a connection to that service. Now, every service requires a different type of connection. With the Google products, some of them are quite easy. You just need to sign into your Google account and you're good to go. But not every service is like that. Some services may require an access token or an API key or a username and password. So every service is a little bit different. And so it's going to be important that you read the documentation properly and try to figure out what it's actually asking for when you sign up. And it's going to tell you, though, on make.com. So, for example, if I click under connection here, if I click add, it's going to tell me what it needs to make this connection. It'll tell me, do you need an access token, API key, whatever. So this one's pretty simple. It's just saying, hey, you need to sign in with your Google account. So I'll do that. And that pops open, my Google window. I choose the account I want to log into and hit continue. And it's going to ask me yes or no. You want to continue allowing Make to have access to your stuff. And you just hit continue. And then you're good to go. From here on, now that I've got my connection, I can start sending emails. So that's important. Now let's try another one. Let's see here. Let's try, for example, Airtable. Let's do create a record within Airtable. Let's click on add for connection. Okay, so in Airtable, see, this one is a little bit different, right? The connection type allows you to choose between Airtable OAuth or Airtable token or key. So that would require you to go to Airtable and read their documentation on how to either get a token or an OAuth authorization. It's probably some sort of passcode, token, key, access token. They're all kind of the same thing. They're just basically it's a way to authenticate you with that service. So they're all a little bit different. Let's try one more and see if we can find a different one. Yeah, we'll do OpenAI. OpenAI. So we'll complete a completion. Okay, so let's do add connection again. Okay, so with OpenAI, right, they want an API key. And they also have the option to put in your organization ID. So again, this one's going to be a little bit different than the other one. So they're all different, and it just requires a little bit of investigation to get the right connection information. And the last thing I want to show you when working with these connection windows is after you have your connection established, and you want to put in some information in these input fields, you click on it once, and you're going to get this little pop-up window. Now, this is really important that you learn all the different options here on these pop-up windows. So we'll start left to right. And so the first one is just a general search. So if I search for string, it's going to show me 2 functions, substring, toString, and a keyword empty string. Okay, so that one just allows for a generic search. The next one is AI. So if you are a customer who's paying for the extra features of having AI, you can use that to help you describe the content of this field and try to figure out what it's looking for. Then you have the next one, which is a little gear icon. These are generic functions. Everything in gray is a function. And if you hover your mouse over it, it'll tell you exactly what that function does. And it gives you examples. So if I click over like switch, you'll see that in the top, it says switch. And then the first thing it's looking for is an expression separated by a semicolon, value 1, semicolon, result 1, semicolon, value 2, result 2, semicolon, etc. And it tells you right here what it does. Whoops. It has a definition of what it does, and then it has examples down below. So these are important if when you're working with data and you want to do something on that data, you want to have some conditional logic or some switch statement, or you want to do any kind of logical evaluation or comparison, this is where you would find that information. There's also operators like and, or, not equal to, keywords, true, false. These are, remember we talked earlier, or in the last video, we talked about Boolean values or Boolean data types. True and false are your Boolean data types. And then you have ignore, null, and erase. Okay, let's go to the next tab. We have this one. These are math functions. So average, ceiling, floor, truncates a number. So if you're working with numbers, these are where you can find some functions. And then you have math operators down here. So if you're doing like any kind of math, so in make, you can't just do like 2 plus 2. Like they want you to actually use these little guys down here. So you click on that. So that's how you would do math in make.com. They don't want you typing it in. They want you using these little guys down here. Or, for example, if you wanted to add 2 numbers, you can use the sum function. And so you would type in sum. And then it say, okay, well, give me the first thing you want to sum, 2. The next thing you want to sum is the next number, 2. And then you close it, out. And that closes out the function. So that would essentially be the same as doing 2 plus 2. So there's different ways to do lots of different things. And it's important to get familiar with this little window here. I'm not sure what you call it. And here are some string functions like length, capitalize, replace, substring, toString, toBinary, escape HTML. Get familiar with these. If you're working with, like for example, if I want to write this email, you can do something like, "Hi, John," and then you can do like a new line there. Welcome to my newsletter, and then new line. Like so, you can use those things there to help you format emails or text. So those are helpful when working with string data. Then you have date and time. So one of the things I use a lot is now. That's when I want to output the current date and time right now. You also have other functions beneath that that related to dates and hours and time. This one here is for working with arrays like join, length, slice, merge, flatten, remove. Those are important to get familiar with. And then lastly, we have variables. And these are important when you're working with inputs to your scenarios, where you have, let's say, for example, you want to run a scenario and you want to give the user the ability to input the location that you want to get the weather from. This is where you'd find access to that variable under this section here. So that's it for this video. The two main takeaways is the connections. They're different for every service. And this little pop-up window here, whenever you're trying to work with data, make sure you get familiar with this pop-up window and use the right information for the right context, whether you're working with strings, numbers, dates, or time. All that information here is available for you. So Make has a bunch of different types of modules, and each play a specific role in your automation scenarios. So here are the four main module categories. We have triggers, we have search modules, we have action modules, and we have universal modules. So let's start off with triggers. So think of it like in the Olympics, right? You have a guy on the sidelines that has a gun, and when he pulls the trigger, the runners take off. It's the same thing in Make.com. A trigger module is what kicks off the scenario to start running. We also have search modules, and they're responsible for finding and retrieving specific information from whatever service they're connected to. The next kind of module we have is an action module. So these would be the ones where they're going to create something, like create a new record, or they're going to update a record, or they're going to delete a record. Those are your action modules. And then lastly, we have universal modules. They perform specialized functions like API calls, data transformation, and webhooks. And these are great for enhancing your workflow flexibility and give you more options when working with data. Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper into triggers. So in a scenario, like over here in Make.com, right? This first module is going to be your trigger. This is what's going to set off the scenario to run, right? And with scenarios, you can only have one trigger. You can't have multiple triggers. So only one trigger can be used at a time. And it's usually the first module in the scenario. And that makes sense, right? This is the first one. Then everything else comes after that to the right. Data initiation. This is the module that captures changes in services and then feeds data to subsequent modules. For example, in this one, we are watching for new rows to a spreadsheet. So this is going to watch for any changes in your spreadsheet, specifically any new rows added to your spreadsheet. And then after that, you could do something with that data. For example, you could create an email, right? So let's say, for example, you're watching a spreadsheet and someone in your department updates that spreadsheet by adding a new row. Well, as soon as that happens, an email can be fired off to alert you to the fact that someone has added a new row to that spreadsheet. You could also use other communication tools like Slack. You could do Slack, create a message. So maybe your company or organization uses Slack for internal messaging. Again, as soon as someone adds a new row to the spreadsheet, it sends off a message to you in Slack. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so within the world of triggers, we have two types of triggers. So within the world of triggers, we have two types. We have polling triggers and instant triggers. So polling triggers, they watch for changes on a schedule. And they often start with the word watch. So for example, this watches for new rows. So this is a polling trigger. So it doesn't happen immediately. It's scheduled, right? So I can say, let's save it. So you could schedule this to say, okay, every day for every 15 minutes, I want you to watch for changes to this spreadsheet. Or maybe you want to do it once. Or maybe you want to do it every day at 2:12. Every day at 2:12, go look for any new rows to that spreadsheet and then send me a Slack message. So these are set on a schedule. They run at set intervals. They make a request to the service, like Google Sheets. And then they return bundles only when changes exist. So that's important. Like if no new rows have been added to this Google spreadsheet since the last time this is run, then it won't return anything. Okay? And then so we have an example here, watch new rows, which we just saw. So that's important to remember. Polling triggers are set on a schedule. That's what kind of tripped me up when I first started with Make. With these watch modules, I thought they would happen instantly, but they don't. These you have to actually schedule. Now the next type of trigger does happen instantly, and these are called instant triggers. And these receive real-time notifications when changes occur. So these will happen as soon as data arrives. You don't need to schedule these, and you recognize them by a lightning icon like this, and the instant tag, which you'll see right here. So if you see a lightning icon or an instant tag, then you know that's going to happen immediately when new data arrives. Think of it like a webhook. They operate very similar to a webhook. Okay, let's move on. Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper into search modules. Again, these are used for finding data. These are used to search or find specific data using filters and queries. You can retrieve all available data with or without filtering, and then you can narrow down the results to exactly what you need. Search modules help you find specific profiles, records, or objects within your connected devices. So let's look at an example. So let's say we're using, again, Google Search. These modules will start with the word search. So search rows and then search rows advanced are two options you have within Google Sheets. So when you pick those, the next thing you can do is actually filter the data. So again, we talked about connection windows in a previous video. Within the connection window, you can add filters. And the filters allow you to filter the results, all right? So you can say, we're filter the results from Google Sheets where email is not blank or is not empty, or where first name equals Bob, right? Or phone number, or let's say you're doing a number, right? Like filter where, let's say, what would be an example of an age, right? You want to filter by age. So show me all results where age is greater than 18. So those are examples of the types of filtering you can do. Now, lastly, and a couple other options here, you can do order by. You can order the results. You can sort the results, and then you can limit the results. So maybe you only want 10 records or 20 records. You can do all that here in the connection window. And then here are your action modules. So here again are your action modules we can create. So that's like add a new row to a Google Sheet. We can also get data by a specific ID. We can update an existing row based upon an ID. And then we can delete a row based on a specific ID. So these are kind of like workhorses of Make.com. They process data and make changes to the data in your connected services. Then you have universal modules like the HTTP request module. I'll show you what that looks like here. So HTTP. So this module is great for working with APIs. So sometimes in Make.com, you want to work with a service and there's not a module already pre-built like Google Sheets. Well, you would use the HTTP module to connect to the API of that service. And you want to get familiar with these because you'll use these a lot. Then we also have tools. So if you go down here, right here, and click on tools, you'll see these are tools available to you. One that you'll probably use a lot is set variable. So for example, I want to set the name. I'll create a variable called name, and the value will be Jonathan. So that's not a specific service like Google Sheets, right? But it is a valuable tool that you can use when you're working in your scenarios. So you want to get familiar with the tools. In here, another one you might use a lot is sleep. Sleep is one I use quite often, especially when working with APIs. For example, you want to reach out to an API and get a bunch of records. Well, if you try to call a bunch of records simultaneously with an API, sometimes you can get dinged for making too many requests. So in that instance, what you can do is add a delay between each API request. So with this module, you would make a request, wait 10 seconds, make another request, wait 10 seconds, make another request, 10 seconds. So it's a way to help keep the API from getting angry with you and dinging you for too many requests. So I use the sleep module all the time. Okay, what else? Data storage. Within make.com, it actually has a database. It's called a data store. If you click over here on the left-hand side, there's 3 buttons, and you click on more. You get this little window that pops up, and you want to click on data stores. And again, a data store is just like an internal database within Make. So if I click on browse, you'll see I've created this data store, and this is a bunch of leads. I have this data store called Lead Gen Data Store, which contains a company name, email, first name, icebreaker, website. So it's kind of like Google Sheets, but it's built in inside of Make. And last, we have webhooks. And so webhooks is another one that you're going to want to learn. You're going to use it a lot, actually. So let me go back and show you what a webhook looks like. We'll create a new scenario. And a webhook, to find it, just search for webhook. Custom webhook. There you go. Okay, so let's go back to our presentation real quick. Okay, when you work with webhooks, remember earlier we talked about triggers happening in real time. So webhook is one of those triggers that will initiate as soon as data arrives. So whenever you create a webhook, you can create a new one by clicking on Add, and then just giving it a name. So I'll call it Make Foundations Demo, and click Save. Okay, as soon as I clicked on Save, you'll see it gave me this address. And this address is the address of this webhook. So if I copy this and then go to my browser and just paste that into the URL, you'll see I get the word accepted. That means that a webhook is working. So why are webhooks so powerful? Well, a lot of the work I do is interacting with other third-party platforms like Airtable. And within Airtable, it has automations. And so if I want something to happen within Airtable, I can trigger an automation to then reach out to make.com. So in that case, the webhook is the bridge between Airtable and make.com. And then within make.com, I could do some data or make something happen. Okay, so here I am in make.com, and I've got my automations tab open here. And so let me walk you through what this actually does. So the first trigger that's going to trigger this automation is when a record is created in the search queries table. So as soon as a new row is added to that table, this automation fires. And then let's just choose one. Let's just choose this record for testing. All right. And the next thing it does is it will run a script. And that's the next step, right? So run a script. So then what we do next is we can hit on edit code. And all this code is doing is it's calling this fetch function. And this fetch function is going to call a webhook in make.com. So what I can do right now then is just copy paste this address. We'll go over to Airtable. We'll replace it with my current webhook. And then let's run it, and you'll see what happens. So we'll hit run. Let's hit save. So we'll hit run once. So now you'll notice that the icon is spinning. And down here in the bottom left, it says waiting for data. So this webhook is just waiting for something to send data to it, right? So let's go back over to Airtable. And I'll click on test. And now if we go back over to make, we should see something pop up here momentarily. Boom, there we go. Okay, so that was a successful call from Airtable to make.com. And you'll see that it passed the value for record ID. If you go back to Airtable, you'll see in this test, it tells you what webhook it called and what record ID it passed, which starts with REC and ends with LP. REC ends with LP, success. Okay, so there we go. So we were able to connect Airtable to make.com through the power of webhooks. Okay, so here we are in Make. And the first thing we're going to do is connect to Google Sheets. And I'm going to do a search rows. I'm going to connect to a database of leads in Google Sheets. So let me navigate to that. And in this search module, you can just search for it. So leads for, there we go. So there is the spreadsheet that I'm looking for. And the sheet name is leads. Now, before I get into the filtering, let's go take a look at the spreadsheet. Okay, so here we are in Google Sheets. You'll notice we have 5 columns: company, email, first name, title, and website. You also notice that for some of the first name fields, they're empty. In addition, title is also empty, but company is completely filled up, and also email, and it looks like website is filled out as well. So if we wanted to extract all these leads from Google Sheets, all we have to do at this point is just save and hit run, and it would grab every single one of those leads. And let's see, how many leads? Okay, so that's a bunch. There's over 625 rows in the spreadsheet. So I don't want to pull that many. So let's just pull 10. Okay, so how will we just pull 10? So when you click on the module at the bottom of the connection window, you'll see limit. So we'll just type in 10 and hit save. We'll save our scenario, and then we'll click run once. Boom, there we go. So let's talk about what this connection window is showing us. So at the top, we have the input, and then beneath that, we have the output. So in the input, you'll see that we have our limit of 10. So there's our first filter, and it's pulling from the sheet name leads. If we go back to the spreadsheet, you'll see down here, the sheet name is leads. And the sort order is ascending. Table contains headers true. And okay, good. So then we have our output. So what does our output look like? Well, you'll notice that for all 10 records, make.com is returning a collection or a bundle. Remember in a previous video, we talked about the ability to recognize these outputs by this little grayed out word in the parentheses. This is a collection. And if you click on a bundle, you'll see that each bundle is representing one record or one row in the spreadsheet. So for example, the first one is North Carolina Classic Design. If we go back to our spreadsheet, you'll see the very first one is North Carolina Classic Design. So we're pulling in the right information. So 10 results returned from the limit of 10. Okay, so what else can we do with our filtering? Well, let's see. Let's say that we only want records where first name exists. You'll notice that for some of these rows, there is no first name. So let's say we only want records where first name exists. How would we do that? Well, we click on our connection window again, and we go to filter. We click it once, and you'll notice that right away it's giving us all the column headers. And so we'll click on first name. And then if you click on the drop-down arrow, you'll notice that we have all sorts of options here. And the options are broken down by basic operators, text operators, numeric operators, date time operators, Boolean operators, array operators, and that's it. So since we're working with a basic string, we'll just use text operators. So the one that we're looking for is does it, actually you can do does first name exist? So there you go, does first name exist? So we only want records where first name exists. So we'll hit save, we'll run it. We're still limiting it by 10 as well. Just remember that, we're still limiting by 10. Hit run once. And there we go. The very first bundle we get back is Gill Incorporated Design Solutions, and the first name is Brian. So go back to our spreadsheet. The very first one with the first name is Brian for Gill Incorporated Design Solutions. So our filtering is working. What else can we do? You can combine filtering options. So for example, we only want records where first name exists and title exists. So what would that look like? So we go back to our module. We're going to add an AND rule by clicking on that one, and then we're going to look for title, where title exists. Okay, and hit save, and run this scenario once. And the first one we get back again is Gill Incorporated Design Solutions with Brian, with the title of Religious Leader. And there we go. So that filtering is working. So that's the power of filtering. What else can we do? We could order this by certain fields, order by email, order by all the columns that are available to us. We can also change the sort order from ascending to descending. And if you want to return all records, you would just leave the limit field blank. So that's how you do filtering in Make.com. So the next thing we're going to talk about is routing. So routing, think about it like you're driving down the highway and there's a fork in the road, and you can go left or you can go right. So that's an example of routing, choosing different paths to take based upon certain criteria. So let's go back to Make, and I'll show you an example of what I'm talking about. So to add a router, you can do a couple different things. You can click here, and you're going to find it under Flow Control. And there it is, Router. Okay, so there's your router. So right away you saw that the router gave us two options. The first option at the top, the second option at the bottom. In reality, you can have as many router options as you want. I can add a third one. I can add a fourth one. It's not limited to just two. But for the sake of this demo, we'll just do two for now. So there's a couple different ways you can look at routers. You don't always have to think of a router as either or. It could just be you want this thing to happen first and this thing to happen second. That's one way to do a router. And then another way to use a router is an or situation. Like I either want to go this path or I want to go this path. So there's two options there, and or you can do an OR operation. For our example, we're going to do an OR operation, and to do that, we have to add filters. So let's do this. Let's say that we want to pass records in the top path where we have first name and title. And we'll do the second path where we don't have first name and title. So there's two options there. Okay, so let's set those up now in make.com. So for the first path, we're only going to let the leads pass where name and title exist. So let's name it the filter name and title, and we'll just call it name and title exists. And we'll add name exists and title exists. And hit save. So that's the first filter. So records with a name and title exists will go with that path at the top. And then the second path will be name and title do not exist. So we'll go name, first name, and we'll choose does not exist, and title does not exist. And hit save. Okay, so what I went ahead and did was added two variables to the end of each path. So if I click on the first variable for path 1, what we're going to do is put in the name and the title of the individual so we can see who passed through the filter. So we'll pick first name hyphen, and we'll put title and hit save. Same thing down here. We'll put first name hyphen title. Hit save, and let's run that. Okay, so we have 10 records that pass through this filter, and we can verify that by clicking here. And we see Brian, religious leader, came through. Billalyn, director, came through. Adam, sales consultant, came through. So 10 records passed through this filter, which we can also verify by clicking here on the filter. Now look through all the leads that came through. The ones with the double green check marks are the ones that passed. And the ones with these guys did not pass, right? You'll see not everybody passed. So all 20 records tried to go through, only 10 of them passed through. And then if we go to the second path, we'll see that 8 passed through the filter. And if we click on here, you'll see, well, it's empty, right? Because we have no name and no title. So nothing there to show. So that's how you use the router to control the flow of data moving through your scenario. And today we're talking about APIs. Now, why are APIs so important that you grasp? Well, anytime you're trying to make a connection to a service, you're most likely working through an API. And for example, when you're working with Google Sheets, you're working with the Google Sheets API. And sometimes when you're working in make.com, they don't always have the module pre-built for the service that you're trying to consume or reach out to or connect to. And so we have a specific module that we can use in those cases where Make doesn't have a module built in, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So API stands for Application Programming Interface. And that's an applicable title because APIs enable different software systems to communicate back and forth. It's kind of like the gateway between two different services. So let's talk a little bit more about APIs. So APIs allow different software applications to share data and functionality. They provide standardized methods for software interaction, and they enable you to work with any service, even if Make does not provide a pre-built module. And again, I'll show you that in a little bit. And then within an API, you have what's called endpoints. An endpoint is a specific URL that represents different services that are available through the API. Each endpoint typically represents a resource or action in your system. So let's look at some examples. So let's say that we have an API that we're trying to connect to manage our blog posts. So for example, one endpoint might be api.example.com/posts. So when you call that endpoint, it will retrieve all blog posts. Now, if you want a specific blog post, you might do something like /post/ and then the ID of the specific blog post that you want. Or if you want to create a new blog post, it would be post /new. So each address, each endpoint has a specific action associated with it. So I'll show you what I'm talking about here next. So if we look at the available HTTP methods, when working with APIs, you have delete, which obviously removes a resource by a given ID. Put or patch. It's kind of some weird names. I don't know why they don't just call it update, but put or patch is when you're updating an existing resource. So you might pass an ID and say, I want to update this blog post. Then you have post, which is when you want to create a new resource. So you'd pass data to it, and usually in JSON format. And then you have get. And we've seen get before, but get is just that. It's just you're going to go get or retrieve some data from your resource. And that could be give me everything, or get, and you pass an ID and get just that one record. Okay, within APIs, we also have request headers. And there's lots of different types of headers, but the two that you'll see the most often is the authorization header or the content type header. The authorization header identifies who is making the request, which is you. And the way you typically authenticate is through an authorization header with the word bearer and then an API key. And so every API requires you to sign up for their resource. Some are free, some are paid. And then in return, you get back an API key, and that authenticates you against that API and allows you to use their service. Secondly, content type. This header specifies the format of the data being sent to the API. And typically, this is going to be JSON. And so the key value pair is content type : application / JSON. So that's authorization and content type. You'll see those again. So what does a request body structure look like? So for example, if you're going to do, let's go back to our methods. If you're going to do a post, which is when you want to create a new resource, you have to pass some data to it. And this is what it would look like. And again, we've seen this before, right? This is JSON format, which includes key value pairs. So in this example, we have title, which is the key, and the value is make fundamentals for beginners. The next one will be category is the key, and the value is make.com, and so on and so forth. So you would pass this body structure to the API to create a new record. Okay? So what does the API request lifecycle look like? Well, the first thing you do is you send an HTTP request to an endpoint. You then authenticate on that service by passing your API key. And then the server is going to perform the requested data operation, which might be delete, put, get, or post. And finally, the server is going to respond with either data and a status code. So what are the status codes? Well, some of the common API response codes are 200, which means everything's okay. 300, this resource moved permanently. 400, bad request. 401, unauthorized. You might have seen some of these before when you're working with websites or APIs. 403 means you're forbidden. 404 is not found. 408, request timeout. 500, internal server error. 502, bad gateway, and 504, gateway timeout. Those are just some common ones, but there's more. And they're broken down by different categories. And the category is defined by the first number. So informational codes start with 1, success codes start with 2, redirection codes start with 3, client error codes start with 4, and server error codes start with 5. So those are status codes you want to be familiar with, because when you're working with APIs and you get back a status code, if it's anything but like 200, then usually it means you have a problem. Okay, so let me show you an example of working with an API in Make.com. So here in Make.com, we're going to connect to an API using a specific module called the HTTP request module. And the API we're going to be working with is the Open Weather API, which allows us to get the weather for a specific city. Now, Make.com already has an Open Weather map module, but let's pretend that it doesn't. Let's pretend that we did a search for Open Weather and it was not found. So what would we do instead? Well, we would do a search for this guy right here. HTTP module is what you're looking for. Now it has different options: get a file, make a basic auth request, make an API key request, make an auth02 request. But the one we're going to use for this example is just make a request. So you'll see that it's asking for a URL. So how do we find the URL? We have to go to the API documentation, and we're going to be looking for the docs on the current weather. Click on API docs. So the endpoint we're looking for, it allows you to search by city name. So this is the format of the URL. So we can just copy paste this into our HTTP module, and you have to replace it with a couple of different format. So this is the URL that it's looking for, but you notice it has two variables. Right after the weather, there's a question mark with a Q equals city name. So that's a variable. You're going to replace that with, say, London. And then there's app ID equals, and you're going to replace that with your API key. And you can get a free API key on this website. And once you log in, you go to My API Keys. You can generate a new API key and then just copy it. So I already have the, let's just do it here. So let's do this. So let's just copy my API key. I'll just copy that. Let's just save it over here. Okay, and let's go back to our documentation. So we're going to copy the URL. Let's make this bigger so we can see it. There. All right, so let's make it bigger. Nice and, oh, it's too big. There we go. Let's change the city name to London. And let's swap out with our API key here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead and do something because I've done this before. I know that this is going to return it back in Celsius, which I can't read Celsius. And so you're going to have to change the, units. Change the units to imperial, and you'll get it back in Fahrenheit. So I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead and change it by adding ampersand. Oops, wrong one. Units, ampersand, units equal imperial. There we go. So there is our URL. Weather, Q equals London, app ID, and units is imperial. So let's just copy this. Go back to make.com. We'll drop it into our URL. Input field and hit save. We'll hit save, and then we'll hit run once. And there we go. So there is our request. We'll see the status code is 200. Remember, 200 means everything's okay. And you'll look under here, Under headers, you'll see some of the information that was passed to the API. There's our content type, where application is JSON. Content length was 509 characters, I think. Let's see, what other information do we see here? Nothing that we need to worry about. Okay, and then beneath the headers, you have the data. And the data right here is in, you guessed it, JSON format. So this is kind of hard to read, right? So we need to do something with this data which is easier to read. So since it's coming back in JSON format, we're going to add a module called parse JSON. And we're just going to choose the data from the previous module, click it and hit save, and we'll save it. And that's okay. And we'll hit run once. And there we go. Okay, so now we have something that we can actually read. And look at all the information we got about the weather in London. Specifically, we're looking for the weather. Oh, nope, so yeah. Specifically, we're looking for the temperature, so we'll go under main. And it says the temperature is 57 degrees Fahrenheit, but feels like 56. It has the humidity, it has the pressure, it has the wind, it has cloud cover. Let's see what else. It's cloudy, broken clouds, yeah. Okay, let's try a different place. Let's see, let's go back in here. Let's change it to New York. We'll hit save, we'll run it one more time. Good, everything came back okay. So we go to main, temperature is 71, feels like 72. So if APIs feel confusing or overwhelming, that's okay, because that's the way I felt until I started using this free platform. So stick around to the end of the video and I'll tell you how to download this free guide that includes this powerful API tool. Today we're talking about bundles, iterators, and aggregators. Let's get into it. Okay, so we want to learn how to control the flow of data in Make with bundles, iterators, and aggregators. These tools will help you create more efficient and powerful automations. Okay, let's try to, first of all, understand bundles. We've seen bundles before, but what is a bundle? In essence, a bundle is a JSON object containing data that flows between modules in Make.com. And how do bundles work? Well, each module can output one or more bundles which become inputs for the next module in your scenario. And we've seen that before in previous videos where we output some data from Google Sheets and then we use that data for filtering or routing. When multiple bundles flow through a scenario, each bundle gets processed separately. For example, we've seen this before. We want to pull 5 rows from Google Sheets. From a spreadsheet, we get 5 bundles back. And then let's say we wanted to pull 5 records from Google Sheets and then add an email module after the Google Sheets module. If we get 5 bundles back, then that means we would send 5 emails because the next module is going to run the same number of bundles that I returned from the previous module. Okay, so what is an iterator? I think it'll help you understand what an iterator is if you look at the logo in Make.com. So if we go to Make, create new scenario, we go under flow control and look at iterator. Just look at this module. Look at the logo on there. What is it doing? Well, it's got an arrow coming from the left, one arrow, right? And then it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 arrows continuing to the right. So 1 coming in, 4 going out. So an iterator essentially takes in one array and then splits it into multiple bundles. So 1 in, multiple out. So that is an iterator. You'll see that when I click on it, it's looking for an array. So it accepts an array and then splits it into multiple bundles. So we go back to our presentation. This is essentially what we just said. 1 bundle with an array. Input is a single bundle containing an array. It splits an array elements into separate bundles. And then for the output, we have multiple bundles. Okay, so that is an array, or sorry, that is an iterator, how it works. Here's an example, splitting text into names. So let's say, for example, that we have an array. Well, let's do it. Let's go to make and try it. I'll just show you what it looks like. So we'll do tools, set variable. We'll call it my array, and we'll do split. We'll do John, George, Paul. Yeah, right that. And we'll hit save, and okay, there we go. Okay, so we have an array. An array contains, remember, an array is just a list. So we have three names, John, Paul, and George. And if we go back to our, and now next thing we want to do, right, we did the split to create an array. So now we want to add the iterator module next. So we go to flow control iterator, and it's asking for the array, which in this case is my array. Hit save. Save, yep, we got that, and hit run once. And let's see what we get back. Okay, there we go. So an iterator, the input was the array, right, the list, and the output is three separate bundles. Bundle 1 contains John, bundle 2 contains George, and bundle 3 contains Paul. So one array in, three bundles out. So that is an iterator. Okay. Now we have the opposite of iterators, which is aggregators. An aggregator is going to take lots of bundles and combine it into one array. So if we look at our presentation here, it takes multiple separate bundles as input. It combines all the bundles into a single array, and then the output is just one bundle. So for example, now let's take, basically what we can do at this point is just add an aggregator right next to that. And it's going to ask for the source module, which in this case is the iterator. That's where it's coming from. We can choose what we want to be in that single array or single output, and we'll just choose all and hit save, boom. Okay, so what happened here? We took three bundles, right? John, George, and Paul, and we combined it into one bundle. So you have one bundle now in the output, and that bundle contains an array. John, Paul, John, George, and Paul. So there we go. We took multiple bundles and combined it into one bundle. That is what an aggregator does. Okay, the next aggregator we're going to talk about is the text aggregator. So the name, it's in the name, right? We're going to aggregate text all together in one single block of text. So let me show you how it works. So back in make.com, remember we have an array with John, George, and Paul, and we need to split that up using an iterator. So we'll go back to flow control, iterator, we'll put in the array, we'll run it, and now we have three bundles. So now we want to aggregate all the names together in one line of text. We're going to aggregate the text. So we just want the names. I mean, you can imagine this having lots of information about John, George, and Paul. It could have their last name, email, phone number, etc. But let's say we only wanted their first names. We can pick and choose what we want to aggregate. So to get to the text aggregator, it's not under flow control, it's actually under tools. Scroll down until you see text aggregator. The source module is going to be the iterator. And then what text we want to aggregate? Well, it's going to be value, which in this case, you can see is John. And we want to add a separator between each name. So we'll put comma and hit save. And then we'll save it and run it. And then now you'll see we have John, George, and Paul all aggregated into one line of text. It's no longer separated by different bundles, it's aggregated into one line of text. So that is the text aggregator. And this is an important, often overlooked part of Make.com because you can create the most perfect scenario, but I guarantee you at some point in time, you're going to have a problem. Something's going to break. An API call is going to time out. It's going to have, you're going to pass bad data, or it's going to return bad data. You're going to have an error. And it's just a really important part of working with Make.com because, if you pass this off to a client who maybe pays you thousands of dollars to create this scenario for them, and then it starts throwing errors, they're going to start giving you some phone calls or emails. So you want to be proactive and set your scenarios up in a way that will handle any problems. And a word of advice is anytime you're working with APIs, you always want to implement some type of error handling, always. Okay, let's dive into it. Okay, so why do errors occur in Make scenarios? Well, for example, API failures are pretty common. External API calls are the most common source of errors in Make scenarios because you're dependent on services being maintained by other people. Like you have no control of those services, right? You're just hoping that they're going to keep that service up and running 100%, which is not always the case. So it's up to you to be proactive and implement error handling techniques in case there are problems. Timeout issues. Sometimes the services take too long to respond and can trigger timeout errors, interrupting your workflow at critical points. Sometimes you have data problems. You receive unexpected or malformed data, which can cause processing errors in your scenario. And lastly, you might be dealing with service outages where the API is down entirely, or you run into an issue where you send too many requests, which has happened to me before. You send too many requests and you get rate limit errors. Basically, the API is like, hey, you need to stop sending us so many requests. And that can happen with even services like Google Sheets. If you send Google Sheets try to add too many records at a time, or try to move things around too often, it'll give you a rate error. So those are things to be on the lookout for and to prepare for. So what is the cost of unhandled errors? Well, with Make, if your scenario throws 3 errors and you don't resolve them, it'll actually shut down your entire scenario and turn it off. Now they'll send you an email letting you know they turned it off, but that doesn't look good because if you set this up on a client's account, which you should, which that means if the scenario is shut down, it's going to send them an email too, letting them know that the scenario has been shut down. So they're going to know about it too. So you want to make sure that you're on top of it and you have a way to resolve that. So you want to make sure you don't get yourself in a situation where the client's upset with you. Also, workflow interruptions. If you're dealing with someone's business and your automation is critical to the success of their business, especially if you're dealing with financial transactions, that's not good. People can get really upset when it comes to money. Or you can even have data loss. So valuable information could be lost, could be wiped out because of a connection failure or unhandled error. So when errors go unhandled in Make, the consequences extend beyond just mere technical issues. Your automation will eventually be disabled completely by Make, requiring manual intervention to restart. This creates a ripple effect, disrupting dependent businesses, processes, and potentially causing critical data to be lost or processed incorrectly, aka your client will be not very happy with you if you're doing this for a business. So let's talk about some of the common error handler types within Make.com. You have several different options of types of errors. You can actually find those if you go to make and click on, let's see, let's go, no, that's not what we want. Let's go here, let's go like error table, okay, and then we click on, whoops, okay, let's back up. All right, this is the first time to come here. Okay, so here in Make, I just want to show you real quick how you get to the error handlers. You can right-click on a module and choose Add Error Handler, and you'll see you get 5 options: break, commit, ignore, resume, or rollback. And we're going to talk about those here briefly. Okay, the first one is the break error handler. All these operate a little bit differently, so it's important to pay attention to how they work. So the break handler, it will remove the problematic bundle from the scenario flow and store the information as an incomplete execution. So remember we talked about bundles. So if you have 10 bundles coming back from Google Sheets and one of those has bad data, it's going to remove that one bundle from the flow and store it as an incomplete execution so that later you can come back to it and try to process just that one bundle again. Break error handlers allow setting up for retry attempts. So let me show you what that looks like. So if you choose a break, you notice that it has a couple different fields. Number one, the main one you want to look at is the number of attempts and the interval between attempts. So if you're working with an API and it has like a temporary hiccup, what you might want to do is maybe have, I don't know, 1 minute between 3 attempts. So in 60 seconds, it's going to try to make the API call again. If it fails, it's going to wait 60 seconds, try it again. And maybe on the third try, like the service kicks back in and it works and it keeps going. So that's the power of the break error handler, because it allows you, it doesn't stop the scenario, it just gives you kind of a chance to kind of temporarily try again, basically. And as I said here, you can configure it for a different interval. Now, this is best for temporary failures that might resolve with time, such as momentary API outages or network connectivity issues. So, sometimes your Wi-Fi goes out, sometimes there's problems with the internet or with the service. So this is a good error handler to use for temporary hiccups. And then we have the commit error handler. What does that one look like? So if we go here, delete that one, right click, we go to commit. And commit is just a checkbox. Let's see what that does. The commit error handler, it stops the scenario run. Okay, so it's going through modules, but it stops. But then it commits any changes already made in your database applications. So, for example, if this module or this scenario here was writing to a database, it would go ahead and write the data to the database, but it's going to stop this scenario. It preserves database integrity, but then it prevents the processing of subsequent bundles after the problem bundle, and it halts the error bundle's progression. This is best for situations where partial completion is acceptable, and preserving database changes is critical, even if the full workflow cannot complete. So there are times when you're working with databases where it's critical that you write that record, because anytime you try to interrupt a connection to a database, it can cause issues with data being corrupted. So commit is really good if you want to preserve data, and partial completion is okay because you can write that one record but then halt the rest of it and then go investigate what the problem is. Okay, let's move on. Now we have the ignore error handler. What does that one look like? Let's get rid of this one. Ignore is just a circle with 2 green arrows. The ignore error handler completely ignores the error, okay, and it removes the problematic bundle from the scenario flow. So you get an error, it ignores it, it takes the problem bundle and just gets rid of it. The scenario keeps running with the next bundle in the queue. This is the simplest error handling approach. There's no error notification or tracking, and it maintains the workflow momentum. So this is kind of nice. If the data is not super critical, it'll just ignore the one that's causing the problem and move on to the next bundle. The next one is the resume error handler. Let's see, resume is just a circle with text. Okay, let's see what that does. It replaces the failed module's output with a substitute output that you define in the settings. The scenario continues using this substitute data. So it's like fallback data, right? So it's like here is the fallback text. So if this module failed, this would be your fallback in case that failed. So that's important. If your next module is expecting something, you're going to give it something as fallback. And it allows for defining custom inputs and maintains data structure integrity, which again means that the next module won't break because you're going to pass it something, even if it's dummy data or fallback data. So when do you use each? Use ignore when the bundle's data isn't critical to subsequent steps. Use resume when you need to provide default or fallback values to keep dependent modules functioning properly. Okay, I hope that's clear. Okay, understanding error handler types, rollback, and custom. All right, let's see what those look like. Rollback has a circle with a red arrow pointing back. Okay. So rollback error handler, it stops the scenario run and then reverts the changes made by modules, but only the ones that support transactions, ensuring database consistency. No additional bundles are processed after the error occurs, maintaining data integrity across connected systems. So this is really helpful when data integrity is important because it allows you to not have any partial records in your database. Okay, the last module we want to look at is the custom module error handler. So let me show you what that looks like. You'll notice that there's not any more of these to choose from. Right, there's only 5, but here's what we can do. We can add this, right? Send an email. Okay, so you'll notice that I didn't add rollback, commit, resume, right? This is a Gmail. So what I'm doing in this scenario is saying, hey, if there's an error with the text aggregator module, I want you to send an email. That is the thing I want you to do next. I don't want you to roll back. I don't want you to commit or resume or break. I want you to send an email. So this is like a custom error handler. And error handlers are defined by these circles that are empty. Notice these are circles that are full, and these circles are empty. And you can actually even put a filter on it. You know, like you can say, only send me an email if an email is passed. You know, if email exists. Okay, what are some error handling best practices? So identify critical modules. Analyze your scenario to identify modules where failures would be most disruptive. API calls, database operations, and file handling typically require robust error handling due to their external dependencies and importance. Number 2, match error handler types. Number 2, match handlers to error types. Select error handlers based on the specific types of errors you anticipate. For temporary outages, use break with retries. For data structure issues, resume with fallback values. For database consistency issues, consider rollback or commit. Number 3, implement monitoring. Set up notification systems using custom error handlers to alert you when critical failures occur, like the email module. This proactive approach reduces downtime and enables faster resolution of underlying issues. And I will say this, within Make, You can set up different users in the organization, and that will allow you to also receive emails when there's problems. So, like for example, when I set these up for my clients, I have them set up under their name, and then they add my account under their organization, and that way I get the error emails just like them. That way I can respond quickly to any problems. And lastly, test your error scenarios. Deliberately trigger errors in your test environment to verify that your error handling works as expected. So you want to deliberately cause an error, right, to test it. Simulate API failures, timeout conditions, and data problems to ensure that your automation remains resilient under stress. So let's put it all together. Building resilient automations. Anticipate failure points. Implement appropriate handlers. Create notification systems. Test and refine. So those are basic principles of like any kind of development, whether you're developing web applications or apps or websites or automations. You always want to be anticipating failure points and taking action in case something bad happens. So when we're talking about AI automation, this is the AI part. And the good news is that Make already has a couple of in-house AI modules already pre-built into the platform. So if we hop over to make.com, and I have a blank canvas here, and let's do a search for, there it is, Make AI Tools. You'll see that Make already has a couple of endpoints already built into their platform. So for example, this first one says request anything, sends a request for Make AI Tools to answer. So this is known as a prompt. So let's try it. Let's do create a step-by-step guide on how to create a new scenario in make.com. So this is Make's internal AI, and we'll save it and we'll run it and see what happens. And you'll see we get back one bundle, and in the answer, here it is. It says, log into your make.com account, click on the scenarios tab, click the create a new scenario button, and then it goes on from there. So there's one example of one of the endpoints available in make.com. Let's see what else we can do. Extract information from text. Retrieves information that you specify from text. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, so we need to enter some sort of text. So let's go to, let's say we'll go to news. We'll just find some random article. And we'll go to The Guardian. And we'll just copy, paste some text. Copy. We'll paste it in there. Okay, so now we have our text, and we want to extract something from there. So it says description of what to extract. Let's see, what is this article about? This is some political stuff. We don't want to get into that, but let's see what we can pull out. Okay, right here it says there's a judge that made a ruling that goes into effect 9:30 a.m. on Friday. So we could say what is or when does the ruling by the judge go into effect? And we'll give it a name. We'll call it ruling, and we'll set it up as a text, and we'll hit save, and we'll run it. Here we go. Our output is ruling is 9:30 a.m. on Friday, which matches up with 9 a.m. on Friday. Okay, so that worked. So we're able to use that one successfully. What else do we have? I'm not going to go through all these, but I just want to give you a general idea of what's possible in make.com. Categorizing text, translating text, Let's try translating. Where is the bathroom? And let's do it in Spanish, right? Let's see what we get back. ¿Dónde está el baño? Okay, so that worked pretty good. That sounds like Spanish to me. What else do we have? Identify languages, summarize text, analyze sentiment, meaning it evaluates the tone of a text and determines if it's positive, neutral, or negative. This is known as the sentiment. Standardize text, which adjusts the style and format of the text to ensure it's consistent. And chunk text. So there you go. There's a couple of built-in AI tools already in Make. And let's see what else we got here. So yeah, so here we are. We're just kind of summarizing again what the options are. Request anything, extract information, categorizing text, translating text, summarizing text, and analyzing sentiment are just a few of the main ones. Okay, let's talk about LLMs. You might have heard this term being thrown around, but an LLM stands for Large Language Model. And these are the models that the AI is trained on when it's trying to gather all different types of data, whether it can be articles or blogs or videos or images. It's gathering all that data, and that's the model that the AI is being trained on. So and there's two types of LLMs. There's non-reasoning LLMs, and there's reasoning LLMs. And we're going to spend a few minutes talking about the differences between the two. So for non-reasoning LLMs, the key characteristics are fast response times, lower computational cost, and it's ideal for straightforward tasks that are simple. Some of the models that you might use for non-reasoning LLMs are GPT-4o, Claude 3.5, and Gemini Flash. What are some optimal use cases? Simple content generation, basic classification, and if you want to put it in terms of gamification, it would be like playing a game of tic-tac-toe. So very simple, very straightforward. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have reasoning LLMs, which are categorized by more thorough analysis, higher processing costs, better for complex problem solving. And again, if we're putting it in the context of gamification, it would be like playing chess as opposed to tic-tac-toe. So popular models would be GPT-403, GPT-401, DeepSeek, and Gemini 2o Thinking. So reasoning LLMs process information more deeply and require more computational resources. Okay, so what are some general use cases of using LLMs? Well, the first one is to extract data. This is when you want to pull specific information from, say, LinkedIn profiles like name and email. So you might copy paste the profile information from someone on LinkedIn, or you're going to scrape it from the web. And then you can ask the LLM to extract, give me the name, the email address, and the title of this person on LinkedIn. So extracting data. Number two, content generation. This is something you might be more familiar with if you use ChatGPT a lot. It can be used to create reports, write emails, and even generate images now. Number three, classification. This is good for sorting emails, right? You get a lot of emails in your inbox, and you can classify them in different categories like spam, support, or sales. Number four, evaluation. This is when the LLM is analyzing sentiment, or it's assessing the output from other LLMs. And lastly, data transformation. This is used to convert data from one format to another. So for example, you might get some data from an API in JSON format, and now you want to convert it to another format like XML, HTML, or a table. So that's that's a good example of using the LLM for data transformation. Okay, now we're going to get into a skill that you're going to need to get really good at, which is prompting. And prompting in the context of Make.com is really important because you're not using ChatGPT where you have this back and forth conversation and you can tweak the prompt until you get it right. In the case of Make.com, you're actually calling the API of ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini. And so your prompt needs to be structured in a way that's consistent every time. You want to get consistent results every time. So here are some prompting best practices. Understand the limitations. Unlike ChatGPT conversations, Make.com AI modules need complete instructions up front. You won't have back and forth refinement. Number 2, use a structured framework. Organize your prompts with clear sections. This improves consistency and success rates. Number 3, test and iterate. Refine your prompts based on results. Small adjustments can significantly improve your outcomes. Okay, let's look at a very basic prompt framework. And there are many prompt frameworks on the internet. If you do a Google search, you'll find everyone kind of has something a little bit different. I found this one from a YouTube video, and it's pretty straightforward. I like it. It's simple. They can obviously get more complex, but I think this is a good place to start. And number 1 is role and objective. Define the AI's role and a description of the task. Number 2, provide instructions. Provide rules, output formats, and error prevention. And don't worry, I'll show you an example of all this in a minute. Number 3, examples. Include at least 2 examples of expected outputs. And number 4, variables. Supply the actual data that you want to process. Okay, so here's that example I promised you. Now, you're going to notice that we're using hashtags, and this is called, this format is called markup. And in the case of markup, a hashtag represents, or one hashtag represents an H1 tag essentially, and 2 hashtags would represent an H2, and 3 hashtags represent an H3, and so on and so forth. So when we're formatting our prompts, we want to use markup format language. So number 1, role and objective. You are a world-class email parser. So there's the role, right? And we're also kind of hyping up the AI a little bit. And I always thought that's kind of funny. We have to really encourage the AI, but the data and the studying and the tests have all been done to show that by pumping up the AI, it performs better. And now we want to define the task. Your task is to identify and extract the invoice number from the provided email. Number 2, instructions. Only identify and extract the invoice number from an email, nothing else. If no invoice number is found, respond with not available, nothing else. Do not include markup in your output. So you'll notice that we keep saying nothing else because oftentimes an LLM can get very verbose and it wants to try to explain everything to you. And you know, if you're doing this in Make.com and you're expecting a specific output for the next module after that, if you're getting all these explanations and markup, it could potentially break the scenario because the next module is not going to expect all that. It only wants not available, or it only wants a number, or it may break your router. Your router is looking for not available or a number. And you know, we talked about routers in a previous video. Your router might be looking for certain filters. And if the LLM is providing all this extra information, it can break the scenario. So we want to give it specific instructions on what we're looking for and nothing else. Now let's get into some examples. We want to give it at least 2 examples. So example 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember, we're looking for an invoice number. And example 2 would be 3, 4, 7, 9, 2, 3, 4, 3. All right, let's keep going. And then variables. Variables is we're we're actually providing the data that we want to parse. So the prompt would be, here's the email body you will analyze. And then we have a variable there for email body. Okay, so that's an example of a very simple prompt. You would just copy paste all of this like this, copy paste all that into your ChatGPT or Claude module in Make.com. Okay, so here we are in Make.com. Remember that in our example, we're extracting an invoice number from a provided email. So we need an email module first. I'll go to Gmail. I'll do watch emails. We're not actually going to pull any emails, but we're just going to set it up for demo purposes. So this would pull any new emails. And then we're going to add a ChatGPT module. And the one we're looking for is create a completion. And for the model, we're just going to choose GPT-4o system. And that's a good one for general purpose use. If you go over to ChatGPT, you'll see 4o is great for most tasks. So we'll be using that one for our demo purposes. Okay, the first thing we want to do is define, well, we want to input our prompt. And remember, we have a prompt over here. So we'll just copy, paste, and we'll copy. Okay. And we need to add a message. And the first thing we're going to do is define the role for the developer or the system, which is defining the role for the AI itself. So we'll just copy paste in our prompt from our demonstration. And then you'll see we have all of our hashtags, role and objective, instructions, examples. Yep, there's our examples and variable. And here's the email body. So in this case, you could, if we had pulled an email, in fact, I think it's going to be text content is the email body. So that would be the email body that's going to be parsed by the AI and looking for that invoice number. Okay, so then, okay, bye-bye. Okay, the next thing we have to define is another one of these. We'll add another message, and the role is the user. So this is like your role. This is you. So what are you going to tell the AI to do? Parse the provided email and look for the invoice number. Right? So that's your role. And then lastly, we can define the assistant, or this is the output. And we can say output the invoice number. And there's also, we can also do this. We could also, instead of providing the data here in the body, we could technically also put this in the user prompt or the user section and put it down here if we want to. You can do, either way will work. You could do it up here in developer system or in the user role. Either one of those will work. So at this point, you would save it, you would run it, and the AI would do its thing. So that is an example of how you would use ChatGPT within Make.com. And today we're actually going to build something together, and I'll do it live here on my computer. And this system that we're going to build today is a lead gen system. We're going to incorporate a lot of the different concepts that we've used or taught you so far in this video series. We'll be working with APIs and scraping data and working with Google Sheets and a bunch of different things. So let's get into it. Okay, so here I am in Make.com. We're going to be using, to scrape data, specifically we're going to be scraping lead data. We're going to use an API from a website called Appify. So here on Appify, you can search for all sorts of different scrapers. Like if you look here on the screen, we have TikTok scraper, Google Maps scraper, Instagram scraper. You can build your own actor, Amazon scraper, website content crawler, and they have a ton. Like if you go to console and just go to the, let's see, Appify store. Here we go. And there's all different, here we go, 5,000 plus pre-built actors. Wow. So they have over 5,000 actors already pre-built. And you can sort them by different categories like lead gen. And all these actors work a little bit differently. Some are free. Some are pay per result, like pay $10 and get 1,000 leads. Some are free as long as you pay for a platform fee in Appify and sign up for a subscription. So they're all kind of a little bit different. But the one that we're going to be using today is the Google Maps scraper. So let's take a look at how this scraper works. It is pay per event, and it's 0.007 cents to start the actor and 0.004 cents to scrape, and then a bunch of add-ons. So it's pretty cheap and affordable. So let's look at the description. It says it extracts data from thousands of Google Maps locations and businesses. It includes reviews, details, images, contact info, opening hours, location prices, and more. And then yada, yada, yada. Okay. So if we want to run this scraper, we have to give it some information. And then we can do it by, there's a couple different ways we can run this thing. We can do it by search term. We can add in location. We can tell it how many results that we want. There's all these different options here at the bottom that you may or may not need. So for this example, we're going to try to find web design agencies in Charlotte, North Carolina. So if we were to just run this on the Appify website, how would we do that? Well, here in the search term, we can type in web design agency. Maybe you have a service that caters to web design agencies. Let's see, and then we want to put in locations. So we'll put in where I live. Okay, and for now, number of places to extract, we'll just do 5 for now. And let's see, anything else? Okay, let's just hit save and start. Okay, so right now the actor is running. You can see that on the screen. And the little spinny icon is spinning. And we'll give it a few seconds and boom, we already have results. So let's see what we got back. Charlotte Web Design. Charlotte Web Design is the place title. Okay. We have, we got more. Okay, great. Still going. Okay, just finished. Sorry. I spoke too soon. So here we see the top left succeeded. We got back 5 results. And we see that we have the address, the city, the state, the website. We have their phone number. We have the URL on Google Maps. So we have a bunch of different information that we can scrape from this service. You can also preview this data in JSON format if you'd rather do it that way. It's a little bit easier to read sometimes. Or go back to the table format. Let's see, contact info. Let's see if it gives us anything else under here. Okay, here we go. Here's the SEO, let's see, SEO Clickmaster Web Design, Lazarus Design Team, Premier Web Design Charlotte. This is the name of the company, Web Design. It's pretty generic. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have? We have phone and emails are undefined. Oh, that stinks, but no problem. We can solve that. If it doesn't bring us back an email, we can solve that in a little bit, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so now we know generally how the scraper works, but how are we going to interact with this via make.com? So let's go back to make, and we're going to search for an Appify module called Run an Actor. And you're going to have to establish you have to get an API token. So here in Appify, you can go to Settings and click on API Integration. And then here you have all your personal API tokens, you can just create a new token. I have several here already created, but you can create a token for all your services that you want to connect to. And then once you have your connection, the next thing they're asking for is the actor that you want to run. So we'll choose Google Maps Scraper. And let's see, what else do we need? We need input JSON. Okay, so what is the input? Well, you can get that by going back to the actor. Let's go to our run. And you can click on input. And it will show us the exact JSON that we need to pass. So we can just basically copy all this. Copy and put it here and hit save, and we'll save this. So what we can do right now is actually run this again, and if we click on run, this will actually run this scraper one more time. So we hit, and this is just a good thing to do to test it, and there we go. So, and look, there is the actor just fired. We just sent it over to Apify, and now it's running. So that's good. That means our connection is working, and that means everything's working so far. We got the actor running. So what is next? So that run could take 30 seconds. It could take like 2 minutes, depending on how large your data set is. So what I like to do is just separate my workflow into multiple scenarios. So we'll leave this one alone like it is. We'll save this, and we'll go back and add another one, and I'll show you what we're going to do next. So video 10 lead gen. Part 2. Okay, so we've created a second scenario, and this scenario is going to be listening anytime the actor runs. It's going to be watching that actor. So the trigger that we want is watch actor runs, and we need to choose a hook, or we can add a hook. We'll add a new one. We'll just call it video 10 lead gen part 2. And the actor that we're watching is Google Maps Scraper, Compass, Crawler, Google Places. And hit save. And hit save. There we go. So what this is going to do is it's paying attention to the actor on Apify. And anytime it runs, it's watching. It's constantly watching. And when that thing runs and gets done, then this module will fire. So let's test that out. Let's save it. Let's see, how can we test it? What we need to do is actually open up 2 windows here, and we'll open one to fire it and one to watch for the response. So let's go back to scenarios. And then let's run the actor. And we see that it's running. Okay, so when that gets done running, then this one should fire. So let's wait for it to finish, Oh, there it goes. Okay, so that actor just got done running, and you'll see that this module was waiting for it, and the status message is scraping finished. Perfect. So there we go. So now that we know that's working, the next thing we have to do is actually download the data from the data set. So how do we do that? Well, there's another module in here called Get Dataset Items. Right here. Okay. So it needs to know what data set you want to grab, and we'll get that from the previous module here. So we'll just look for something called, I think it's default data set. There it is, default data set ID. And data transformation clean is fine. Format JSON is fine. Okay, save. Okay, there we go. So let's save that again. And let's run it one more time. It's good to test this out in small increments as you go along. I don't recommend you building out something with 20 modules and then testing it. I like to test it as I go. So let's run this one. So let's just watch it and make sure it works properly. Sometimes these crawlers can get hung up and have problems, so just be aware of that. And let's see. Here we go. So now it's finished running. So now this guy is going to fire off, and boom, there we go. So now, great. So now look, in our output bundle, you can see we actually have records now coming back from the API. So that is, let's see, we got 5 bundles. Let's take a look at it. So the first client or record or lead is Chinti Digital LLC. So we go back to the actor, click on the actor we just ran, and there is Chinti Digital LLC. Perfect. All right, so we're in business. Okay, so now that we have know the connection to the actor is working, we're getting data, and now we want to dump that data into a spreadsheet. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to go over to Google Sheets, create a new spreadsheet, blank spreadsheet. We'll call this Make Foundations Demo. Lead gen. So what columns do we want to put in our spreadsheet? We've got to go back to the actor and see what we're working with. So we have a title, category name, and website. Okay, let's start off with title and category. All right, so let's do title, category, website. Let's see what else we have. We have the phone. Okay. And remember, we didn't really see emails before. In fact, emails was blank. I don't see email. Categories, images. So there's no email. That's okay. We'll figure that out in a second. So no emails. That's okay. All right. So for now, we're just going to get the title, category, website, phone, and we'll put email here for later. But that's okay. So now we need to connect the results from Appify to the spreadsheet. So remember, the name of it is Make Foundations Demo Lead Gen. So we'll go back here, add a Google Sheets module. We'll do add a row, and we'll choose our file from my drive. Let's see, make, no, that's not it. So sometimes you can type it and search for it. Sometimes you have to actually look for it. So let's see, I gotta find it. I think it's under, let's see, and school. And then we got to go down to Good Works. Yep. And then we'll go to Make Foundations. And then we'll finally see our Make Foundations Demo Lead Gen. There we go. And so there's our spreadsheet, Make Foundations Lead Gen. Yep, perfect. We found it. And the sheet is the sheet 1. Table contains headers. Yes. So now all we have to do is fill out these, and notice it already pulled in our columns, right? Title, category, website, phone, email. It already pulled those in from the spreadsheet, so that's pretty cool. So how do we populate these fields? We just need to click on the field and grab the title. We'll grab the category name, and we'll grab the website, and we'll grab the phone. And we didn't have email. So let's save. Cool. We'll realign it. We'll hit save. So now if we run this again, we should get some records in our Google spreadsheet. So let's go back to this one. Actually, we should be able to just run this. Okay, there. So that's waiting for data. So we'll hit run. So that's going to run. Go back to the scraper. Oh, we got a new crawler starting. Perfect. So when that gets done, then this one's going to fire, and it should populate our Google Sheets. There it goes. Okay, any second now we should see, yep, perfect. All right, great. So it looks like it worked. We have 5 operations, and each one of these represents one record that was inserted into the spreadsheet. So now if we go back to the spreadsheet, perfect. You'll see we have our leads in our spreadsheet. Great. So that's working. So now how do we plan on getting the email address? Well, we're going to have to use a third-party service called AnyMail Finder to grab the email. So what AnyMail Finder does, I'll just pull up the website. It allows you to find verified emails, and you could find the emails by a couple different methods. One, you can pass the full name and the website, or you can pass just the company domain name, the website. You can pass the decision maker at the company website, or from LinkedIn. So we don't have, so the information that we have is the website. Remember, we had this website right here. So we're going to be able to pass the website to this and find the email. So let's just test it out. So we'll try this one right here, flagship digital marketing. Yeah, let's try that one. So we'll copy, we'll paste it in there. Hit find emails, and it's doing a search. There we go. It says we found 2 valid emails. Antoine@flagshipdm.com and hello@flagshipdm.com. So that's great. That's on the website, but how do we do that in make.com? Well, we're going to have to add a module in make.com. So what we can do is right before we add Google Sheets, we can actually break this, I think, and we can add the AnyMail Finder module, and we want to click on search for a person's email based on the provided full name and domain or company name. We could do, no, we don't have any names, so we have to do it by company email. Search for a company's emails based on provided domain or company name. That's the one we want. So the way this will work is you have to create a connection to AnyMail, and then you want to search by domain, and the domain is going to come from your get dataset items module, and we would just drop in website. And here you can choose only fully verified emails or use all found emails. That's up to you which one you want to use. And then hit save. And then we can connect our Google Sheets back. So the way that this would work is whenever this runs, whatever emails we get back from AnyMail Finder, and the results we would add to this email field right here. And then those emails would drop into that email column in the spreadsheet. And then you have a way to contact those leads. I'm not going to run that now because my subscription to AnyMail Finder has run out. And but that is the way that you would try to find emails connected to a company when it's not being provided by the Google Maps scraper. Hey there, I was just wrapping up editing on that video and I realized that I left out a couple important parts about how to use these scrapers. So you might have even picked up on it. You're like, okay, well, why do I need to incorporate make.com if I could just export the data directly from Appify? And you could do that. That is fine. So I want to show you a couple of different things here in Make that I forgot to show you in the previous recording. So number one, I want to show you how to use inputs in Make.com. So you'll notice here that we have our JSON that we passed to the actor. And you notice we passed things like location, we passed number of results to scrape, excuse me, and we passed web design agencies. So those are things that you might want to change. You might want to scrape data for web design agencies in Charleston, South Carolina, or New York City, or wherever. So you can change the location. You can even change the niche from web design agencies to real estate agents or whatever, right? You can scrape whoever you want to. So I want to show you how to use inputs so that you don't have to, and the reason I'm showing you this is so you don't have to go back to Appify. You can actually do it right here in Make.com. So let me close this out and let's go down here to inputs. We're going to add an input. We'll call it location. That one's fine. It's required, yes. We'll add niche, and we'll make it required. It's also text, and we'll add num results. Oh, it doesn't like, I don't think you have spaces. Num results. There we go. And this one's going to be a number, and it's also required. Okay, so hit save. Okay, so if we were to run this right now, oh yeah, so action is not possible due to dependencies. You can only use required inputs with an on-demand schedule setting. So the reason why it's saying that is because right now the scenario is set to run every 15 minutes. So I have to change that to on-demand and hit save. Not yet. So now if I were to hit run, it's going to ask me for my inputs. See, location, niche, and results. So how do we get those inputs into JSON? Well, if we open up our JSON here, and the first one we're going to change is the location. So we need to put a variable here, right, that represents the new location. So we'll take out Charlotte. And we'll go over to this little window here and click on these little curly brackets. And you'll see right there it says scenario inputs. And those are the variables we define down here, right? So there's location. Max crawled places search was 5, so we'll swap that out with number results. And then for the niche, we'll swap that out with niche. There we go. And hit save. Save. So now if we run it, so now we can put a different location, we can put a different niche and different number results and hit save and then run it, and we don't have to go back to Appify every time we want to change our search criteria. So that's the first thing I wanted to show you. The second thing I wanted to show you was, let's go back to the other part too. The other thing I want to show you was what do we do once we have all the lead data in Google Sheets? Like, what do we do with that? Well, most likely you're going to want to email them, and you could do one of two things. You could just add a Gmail module here, and you could send an email. There are pros and cons to sending large amounts of emails straight from make.com with a free Gmail account. Or you could pipe that over to a cold outreach system like Smart Lead or Instantly.ai. Those platforms are specifically designed for sending out large amounts of cold emails in volume. So you can pipe that directly over to those platforms. Let me show you, for example, I've used Instantly before. So Instantly, and you could add lead to a campaign. You would create your connection. Let's see, I don't have that anymore. Okay, so you could create your connection, and they would ask for a campaign ID, and they would ask for the lead's email. And then when you run it, it would instantly add that lead information to your platform or to your campaign in the Instantly platform. And then from there, you can do your cold outreach email. So I hope that small example was helpful and that you're finally starting to grasp how to use Make.com. To speed up your learning, you'll want to check out the free resource guide in the description below. This guide includes all the presentations you saw in the video, 5 plug-and-play Make.com blueprints, a Make module decoder, an automation checklist, and the bonus API tool. Just click on the link in the description below and you'll be taken to my free school community. Create your free account, and once you're approved to join, just click on the YouTube resources button and you'll find all the content you need for this video. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.